Captain David Carey, a native of Greensburg, Pennsylvania, and a graduate of the Naval Academy in June 1960, completed flight training at Pensacola, Florida, before reporting to Naval Air Station Kingsville, where he earned his wings of gold. He completed training in the mighty A-4 Skyhawk and served as an attack pilot with VA-163 based out of Lemoore, California. He deployed aboard the USS Oriskany in 1966 and was forced to eject over North Vietnam on the 31st of August, 1967. He spent the next 2,022 days as a prisoner of war until his release in March of 1973. He returned to flying status soon thereafter and served with Fighter Squadron 126 at Naval Air Station Miramar as the operations officer, maintenance officer, and safety officer. Captain Carey has commanded Fleet Composite Squadron 7, Fighter Squadron 126, and the Naval Amphibious School. He also has served as the director of the Navy's Leadership and Management Effectiveness Program and the lead facilitator in the Leadership and Management Seminar for prospective commanding and executive officers. Please join me in a South Texas warm welcome to Captain Dave Carey.
Thank you very much. Sometimes I think we ought to quit before we get started here because it can only go downhill from here. I am delighted to be with you this afternoon. I am delighted to be here to help celebrate the 75th birthday of Navy Kingsville. As the captain said, I came through Kingsville a couple of times. I have some very fond memories of Kingsville, Texas. For those of you who went shooting this morning, my roommate and I used to just take a hand trap out to the caliche pits, and we shot up the caliche pits really well. The most important thing that happened to me here at Kingsville was I really learned how to fly at Kingsville, Texas. I really learned how to fly. I can remember very vividly rolling down. I flew, the trainer was a TF-9 back then, and I can remember very vividly rolling down the runway with the bag up, me in the back seat. You know what the bag is? You have a, so it closes you in the cockpit, and all you have is your instruments and your little world there. And I remember rolling down that runway, and as we go around the runway, my instructor, Lieutenant Warrington, who had told me I could either call him by his first name, yes, or his last name, sir, he would be sitting in the front seat pulling circuit breakers. So about the time we got to the end of the runway and I rotated that airplane, all I had left were pedostatic instruments, a wet compass, and a clock. And he would then start telling me where he wanted to go, which was different than what I had thought we were going to do. So for an hour we'd fly around over South Texas. The whole time I was praying that I was still over South Texas. I really learned how to fly here. The affable Lieutenant Warrington told me many times, you must remember this. Everybody is trying to kill you. He said, oh, they may not be actively trying to kill you, but they don't care if you live or die. Because if you crash that airplane, if you auger in, if you buy the farm, they all of them, the air traffic controllers, the weather guessers, tower operators, they're all going home to dinner that night. They're all trying to kill you. I really learned how to fly here. What I didn't learn in Kingsville was what it would be like to fly in combat. What it would be like to be flying around with people actually really trying to kill you. What it would be like to get shot down. What it would be like to spend 5.5 years in Hanoi. And I'd like to tell you about that for a minute this afternoon. But before I start on that, I want to talk to y'all in uniform. Because if I were sitting there, if I were you, if I were sitting there, I know that this is the question that would be going through my mind. I wonder if I could do that. Or more to the mark, and more to the point, could I do that if I had to? So I want you to know there's a long answer and a short answer to that question. The short answer is yes. I'm here to tell you, yes, you could do it. No ifs, no ands, no buts. You could do it. Now the longer answer, which will only reinforce, by the way, the shorter answer, turns out to be a story. And it goes like this. I was shot down the 31st of August, 1967, when a surface-to-air missile took the tail off my airplane. I didn't know that. The airplane just stayed on its back. It started spinning and tumbling and gyrating through the sky. It was shaking so bad, nothing would focus. When I tried looking at instrument panels, see what was going on, it was just a blur in the cockpit. The stick was real loose. It was like not connected to anything anymore. Both rudder pedals were up against the firewall. This thing was wallowing and tumbling and falling through the sky. Had all the flying characteristics of a brick. I mean, this thing is coming through the sky like a ton of lead. And I'll tell you this, every time the nose of that airplane go by the water, and for me, the water meant safety. It seemed like it hesitated. And I'd think to myself, this thing is going to fly. And I'd start stirring on the stick and kicking the pedals. The nose would whip off. Going through 4,000 feet, I got a glimpse of my altimeter, ejected from the airplane, had a parachute, landed in the middle of a small North Vietnamese village. Now, when I first landed, there was nobody around. I don't know where they were. They were wherever they went for air raids. So I get rid of my helmet, my parachute, I duck out between the hooches, and I start running out across the rice paddy. And as I'm running out, and running is not the right word probably for what happens in a rice paddy. You know, the mud's about this deep out there, and I'm slugging my way through it as best I can, and I'm going, and as I'm going out through the rice paddy, I can look up and I can see those airplanes flying away. So I'm watching the airplanes, I get to about the middle of the rice paddy, and one of them is turning around, and he's going to come back. So I stopped right there. I started digging around in my gear, and I dug out a little radio that we carried. Now, this thing was about the size of an eyeglass case or something. It was kind of like a little brick. And I had had this in my hands a lot of times. The Navy used to make us get them out every couple of weeks and check them out. We used to play with them on the ship sometimes. The point is, I've had this radio in my hands a lot. But I'm standing out in the middle of a rice paddy. I get mud up the middle of my calf. I'm watching that one airplane. He's coming right straight at me. I get this little radio. For the life of me, I couldn't get the radio turned on. It was like I had all thumbs on both of my hands. I'm watching him, and he's getting closer. And I'm trying to get this doggone thing to work. And he's getting, and this wasn't a complicated machine. It only had maybe 2 or 3 little switches on it, but I can't get him in the right sequence. And until finally, as he boomed across the top, I managed to mash down on the right combination of buttons on that radio, and it sparked to life, which allowed me to say, in my very finest airline pilot drawl, "This man, somebody get me out of here right now!" And I started babbling in this radio, and my voice was up about 3 octaves, and it was just all gushing out of me. And I remember thinking to myself, "Oh, this does not sound good." But there was nothing I could do about it. I just babbled in everything. I went on, and y'all know, I was trained. It would have been better for me to die than to not sound good on the radio. This is very important stuff. But there was nothing. I babbled on. The best thing that happened was I ran myself out of breath. And when I ran myself out of breath, I had to pause the inhale. And when I paused the inhale, I let off one of those buttons on that radio, which allowed Dean to get a word in edgewise. And he said, "You know, we cannot come and get you." At which point, I couldn't think of anything clever to say. And Dean said, "I'll see you when this is over." And he flew away. And I stood out there in the middle of the rice paddy. I don't know how to describe it to you. It was like I was the only person in the entire universe. It was just me out there, all alone, by myself. There was no, it was, and I don't imagine I have to describe that to you too much. Because I'm willing to bet money that you've had times in your life already when you get that alone feeling. I mean, stuff happens. You got to make decisions. Sometimes you got to stand up and be confident. Sometimes you get the feeling like there's nobody, just you, all alone. Well, I wasn't alone for very long, of course. The next thing that happened was I was immediately surrounded and captured by about 1 million North Vietnamese. That's exaggeration, right? There were 830,000 of them. I don't know where they came from. There were so many, and they come swarming. They captured me so fast they'd make your head swim. They drug me up out of that rice paddy, and then they proceeded to tie me up with miles of rope. We had so much rope wrapped around me, there was rope everywhere. And then after them, you all tied up with all this rope, then they decided to want to undress me. And they didn't untie me, but they took a big machete made out of the leaf spring of a car, and they would reach in between the rope and just grab handfuls of my gear and chop it away. And they chopped it away until it was me, my undershorts, and my miles and miles of rope. And that started for me what would turn out to be 5.5 years in prison in North Vietnam. The question I'm most frequently asked about that is this: how did you do that? How could you do that? How were you able to do that? And that's the question I'd like to talk with you about for a few minutes this afternoon. How do we do that? Actually, I'd like for you to think about that question. How do we do that? Here, I'll set the scene for you. I was kept locked up for years in cells that were never quite big enough for the number of people who were in them. On average, I lived with about 6 or 7 or 4 other guys. I've been by myself for a few months. I lived with a group of 20 men one time for 1.5 years. But on average, it'd be 5 or 4, 6 of 8 of us. And a lot of them were cells, too. They were in like a dungeon-like prisons that the French had built over there in the early 1900s. The kind of things you see in the movies where they got big, heavy doors, a little spy door, and them little air slits up and way high up in the ceiling. We were interrogated on occasion. We were beaten on occasion. We were tortured on very, very rare occasion. We were not allowed to see or have any contact with any Americans outside our own cell. They want us to be cut off and isolated, cell by cell by cell. They believed it, divide and conquer. And that's the way they're trying to run this place. I weigh about 200 pounds now. At the time I got down to about 125 pounds. But the diet would sustain that. Can you try to picture what I'm trying to describe? I mean, you all have seen enough movies. You pictured groups of Americans locked up in these cells. Well, I said the question I most frequently ask is, how did you do that? And I must tell you, in my mind, the answer to that question is very, very simple. How do we do it? We did what we had to do. We did our best. And we did it day after 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 day. We chose to grow through that experience. We kept our sense of humor, and we kept the faith. Faith in ourselves, faith in each other, faith in this country, faith in God. And you see, I see those things as directly translatable into your lives. I mean, how do you go about your life? How do you deal with the pressure in your life? How do you exercise the influence you have? How do you deal with all the change that's going around? How do you keep up with how do you handle, how are you going to handle the tragedy that's coming in your life? And it's coming. You going to do what you have to do? You do your best? You do it day after day. You grow through all this stuff. You keep your sense of humor. You keep the faith. But wait, before I press you too hard, I owe you a few answers. How do we do it? Well, the first thing we decided we had to be able to do, I don't know how we knew this, we could not allow ourselves to be isolated in these cells. Somehow we knew we had to be in touch with each other. I don't know how we knew that. I'd like to be able to tell you it was because we were so smart. I don't believe that. And you probably, it'd be a hard sell. You know, somehow we knew we couldn't allow ourselves to be isolated. And so we can think about that for a minute here this afternoon. You have a picture in your head, groups of Americans locked up in these cells. Just picture a few of us locked up somewhere. We decide we have to be in touch with each other. We've got to be in touch with each other. Now, there are many parts to the problem. The first part to the problem is this. Whatever we do, it better be very sneaky, because if they catch us, they're going to beat us. The second part to the problem is we must now think of something that we could go over there and tap quietly on that wall So if we got the right answer, we would know it was an American. Might not be Americans over there. Could be Thai, Laotian, Arctic. Could be our captors sneaking around trying to catch us doing these things, so they'd come beat on us for a while. So we had to think of, we had to have a ringtone. Okay? A ringtone, so that if they knew, if the answer was correct, we would know. What does that sound like? Sounds like what? It sounds like dot, 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 dot. I can tell you this. If you've been in this country longer than 6 months, you know the answer to that. It's dot, 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 dot. I don't know why that is. Yeah, I used to think it was because of Burma shave, and I find out a lot of people don't know what Burma shave was anymore. And I now believe it's because we have all wasted hours of our lives watching cartoons, and they always end with that. I'll tell you something else. Now, you have to remember, my experience in Hanoi is through a keyhole in a prison, but they couldn't replicate that rhythm. Oh, they knew what we were doing. They beat it out of us. But when they'd come try to tap us up on the wall to get us in trouble, it never sounded like dot, 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 dot when they did it. It'd be different. It'd be like dot, 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 dot. It was. They didn't have Looney Tunes in that country. Okay, so we go over to the wall, we tap on the wall, dot, 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 dot. We get the right answer, dot, dot, we know. Now, some of you are familiar with, well, some of you might think we do Morse code, but we didn't know how to do Morse code on the wall. But we built a matrix. Maybe you're familiar with a matrix kind of code, where we took a 5x5 matrix and we put in the letters of the alphabet. Now, y'all, being associated with the military, know that I have 25 squares and 26 letters to fill in the box. So we use the letter C for the letter K. Now everything would fit. You could picture this, right? A, B, C, K, D, E, F, G, A. So now we could tap a number across the top and a number down the side. Because you see, we started out tapping 1 for the letter A, 2 for letter B, 3 for letter C, 4. I can't tell you how old it is to tap 20, 15 times on the wall to go find the letter O in the alphabet. But it was a nice, simple way to start. And we had to start very simply because some of these guys were in the Marine Corps. So we'll start very simply, 1 for letter A, 2 for letter B, 3 for letter C, then we'll teach you the matrix, then we get on the wall. That code was so good, we'd use it for everything. If they would take you out and give you the bamboo broom and tell you to sweep down the walkway in between the buildings, you can sweep in the code. See, it sound like this. It was like being on the radio. Everybody listened. The whole world was out there. You could tell jokes, whatever you wanted to do. The world was waiting to hear from you. And then if they took us out, did not give us the bamboo broom, we did it with body noises. Not the kind of body noises some of you were thinking about. It didn't sound like we'd cough and hat and sputter and spit. You get a punchline to your joke. The whole world was out there. How do we do it? First thing we did was worked out this whole communications process. Always, always, always. And I want to tell you this afternoon that I think the analogy between the story I want to tell and your lives and your work is very, very good. I think this is really good stuff. How do we do it? We worked out the communications process, no matter what. No matter what. Why should we do that where we were? Well, for starters, if we were going to somehow get over being isolated, out of touch with each other, be in contact with people, we had to be able to communicate. Why should you be concerned about that where you are? I think the answers are the same. I mean, how easy is it for us to get isolated, disconnected, feel like we're out of touch with people who are close to us, with people we work with? It is so easy to get disconnected. Why should we be concerned about that? Well, if we're going to do anything on a scale larger than a few people in a cell, we got to get organized here. We got to figure out who's in charge, what are we trying to do, how do we take care of each other, anything. On any kind of scale, we got to be able to communicate. Why should you be concerned about where you are? The answers are exactly the same, I think. They're exactly the same. How difficult was that process where we were? It was very, I used to have a callus on my knuckles about 3/8 of an inch deep from tapping on that wall. And some days, if they want to mess with us, they'd come around and make us hold out our hands. If you get calluses, you get knocked around for a little while. Now, I thought that would be okay on rare occasion, rather than every day for hours lay on this healthy floor trying to look under that door. Because if I'm up here tapping on this wall, and none of my cellmates goofing off. We are in this together. They've got their eyes pressed to the little cracks in the shutters. They're listening on these filthy floors for footsteps. It was just a very difficult process. How difficult is that process for you? Well, you know, some people want to argue that the root cause of all of our problems is some sort of break in communications process. I don't go quite that far, but I do know if I ask a question like this, how many of you in this room think that you could say something and that's the way it be? So you know better than that. We say stuff till we're blue in the face. Or worse yet, we send text messages, we leave voicemails out there, we send emails. People are all out there. They're deleting this stuff. They're swearing the system doesn't work very well. It's just a very difficult process. So I think the analogy is pretty good between the story I want to tell you this afternoon and your lives and your work. How do we do it? We worked out the communications process. Always, always, always. And I commend that to your thinking. I don't know you. I don't know you very well at all. Here's what I know. I know that if there's a problem with the communications process anywhere in your life, I know who has to fix it. You do. And if you don't fix it, then you go get it fixed. If there's any kind of problem, at home, at work, with people close to you, you have to fix it. How do we do it over there? The first thing we did always was work out the communications process. Second thing we did, exactly the way you would have done it if you had been there, was we worked out the entertainment schedule. Now, you don't want to think too far out. These are just guys locked up in these cells. So here, we used to have cell meetings. We always had 100% attendance at our meetings. At those meetings, we would talk about movie stars, books, authors. It'd be enough for you to let slip that the last book you had read was Hunger Games. You read Hunger Games. We scheduled you to tell us Hunger Games. So the process would be that you talk to all your cellmates, find out who read Hunger Games, who saw Hunger Games, who knew anything about Hunger Games, go tap a message on the wall. Eventually, you knew everything anybody knew about Hunger Games. Then the appointed night would come, we'd flop on the concrete, and you'd tell us a story. I received an Academy Award. It was for Dr. Shavappa. After I'd been there for years, I moved from cell to cell and prison to prison. I moved in with a group of 20 men one time. My reputation preceded me. They wanted to know, when did you tell us Shivago? So we scheduled it for Sunday night, and I had 3 men. They sat over here. When I would nod my head, they would start up with Laura's team. So I told Shivago in the first person. I was Alec Guinness, the brother, out there searching for the lost daughter. I don't know if you ever remember that story or heard it. It took me 5 hours. At the end of which there was a spontaneous standing ovation. They gave me the Oscar right there on this spot. How do we do it? We did what we had to do. We did our best. We decided we were going to learn something. We were going to come out of there smarter than we went in. We were not going to vegetate. We were going to learn, and so we began to teach each other everything we'd ever learned. And quite a few things we had never learned. I learned to play the piano when I was in prison. I lived with a fellow who had taken piano lessons as a child. We decided I should learn to play. So we took toilet paper, we glued it all together with rice, we took ashes and dirt, we drew a keyboard on it. John taught me how to read the keyboard, he taught me how to read music, he taught me all the finger exercises that go along with playing the piano. I used to practice faithfully. And on Sundays, I would give concerts. So I'd take my piano, I'd spread out at my end of that cell. I have played the most beautiful music in the world, and I have most certainly played with more enthusiasm than anyone's ever played. My roommates, they loved it, of course. Well, if they didn't like what I was playing, they could listen to something else. In the intervening years since I've been home, I have seated myself in front of a real piano. I don't know what was wrong with that piano. You know, it wasn't like in my head. In my mind, I know how to play the piano. It's perfect. I just can't get it out the ends of my fingers. It's a disaster when I try to. And I find a lot of things are like that. Maybe you do too. You ever notice how perfect stuff is in your head? I mean, everything's perfect up there. This whole communications process, we know what we want to say, why we want to say it. It's all perfect up here, and then it's downhill from there. Or there are all kinds of examples of that. How many of you have children? I raised 2 children. In my mind, I knew how to raise perfect children. You had no idea what was going on at home. Things are just like that. They're perfect in our heads. They're perfect. Speaking of perfect, I'll tell you the perfect example. I told you when I stood up here, I was delighted to be here. Now, it's very difficult for me to explain that to you, how excited I am to be here with you today. Because you see today, in this little wee bitty period of time, I'm going to have an opportunity to have a positive impact in your lives. I've been thinking about this in the shower this morning, driving down here. I've been going over my lines. I'm adding lines in. I'm throwing lines out. I'm trying to get my act together. Hey, I'm trying to shrink down 5.5 years of my life into something we can talk about for a few minutes. Touch on some so what questions. And I want you to know this afternoon. No matter what happens in here, in the shower this morning, it was perfect. They're just that way. They're perfect in our heads. It would have been enough over there if you let slip you take a biology course. We make you the biology professor. Same sort of process as the movies, really. Talk to everybody. Find out what they knew about leaves, twigs, bugs, worms, tap messages on the wall. Eventually, you'd start teaching the biology course. I thought I was a French professor. The way that happened was this. They came in one day, and they took 2 of us out, and they split us up, and they began to beat on us. And they told us, and a guard listening outside that door, and he heard us talking about things we were not allowed to talk about. Well, 6 weeks later, when they dumped the 2 of us back in the cell, the roommates wanted to know, what's going on, what's going on? I said, you won't believe this. They're listening outside these doors, they don't understand English, and we are getting hammered for what they think we're saying. So we came to the only logical conclusion, which was we would quit speaking English. What we decided to speak was, I didn't teach the French course yet. What we decided to speak was Pig Latin, yeah! We set aside a whole evening to review the rules for the grammatical construction of Pig Latin. That takes 1 minute. Next morning, crack of dawn, we started speaking nothing but Pig Latin. So I don't know if you've ever spoken nothing but Pig Latin. I can tell you how long you can speak nothing but Pig Latin before you go start raving mad. It takes about 4 hours. In the middle of all that, I let slip that I had taken French. I teached in high school, teached in the Naval Academy. My roommates were going crazy trying to speak Pig Latin. Decided we should immediately shift to French. And so I began to teach French, and I taught French for years. By the time we came back to the United States, I had 6 men, absolutely fluent in the French language. According to me. Hey, there are some problems with that language. I had to make some stuff up. Well, you should have heard me speak it. How did we do? We did what we had to do. We did our best. We chose to grow through that experience. We re-remembered and memorized everything. I'm completely convinced that everything you have ever been exposed to is recorded. The only question is, you go on to get it. Everything's up there. We put it in all the time. It's always in there. It was important to us, for some reason, for example, to be able to name in chronological order every teacher you ever had in your life, or come up with the name of every student in your 5th grade homeroom. Or you'd be amazed what's in your head. Everything is up there. It's up there. For example, when I was first shot down, they took me to Hanoi and they began to interrogate me. They wanted to know some stuff. I wanted to tell them my name, rank, serial number, date of birth. But they really wanted to know some stuff. And what happened was the interrogations led to beatings, and the beatings led to torture, and we got to a point where it hurt so bad, the pain was so great, that I knew if this kept up, I was going to go crazy. And I didn't want to go crazy. Because even as a junior officer, I had my little itty-bitty share of military secrets, and I thought if I'm crazy, there's no telling what I'll say to these people. So what I decided I was going to do was hold out till the last possible second and lie. And that's what happened. We got to the last possible second. I hurt so bad. I was so desperate. And I'd like to be able to tell you, it took weeks. Did it take weeks? It took, I don't know how long it took. I lose some track of time in there. It didn't take weeks, I'll tell you that. I hurt so bad, I started lying. I lied about everything you could imagine. I lied. The interrogator, of course, keep track. How many of you have experience with interrogators? Okay, I'll teach you some stuff about interrogators. Actually, I wouldn't be so quick to answer that question. How many of us have bosses? Hey, how many of us have spouses? This will not be totally unfamiliar. Interrogators never forget anything. They remember everything. So finally, they got done with me and they left. Now, I'll try to describe this. I don't know how to tell you about how I hurt. I could not get up off the floor. My arms didn't work anymore. My arms didn't work for weeks and weeks and weeks. I ate by just wiggling around my stomach, stick my face in a bowl of rice. The pain was absolutely incredible. But worse than the pain was in my mind. It's the only time I've ever been like this in my life where I could not pick a subject and think about it. It was as though I didn't have any control. My mind just ricocheted around inside my head, think about crazy stuff like the first car I bought or the dog I had when I was a kid, just out of control things flashing around in my head. And what I wanted to think about was all the lies I had told, because I knew they'd be bad, and I couldn't get a grip on my mind. It was totally out of control. Into my mind came the first line of the 23rd Psalm. And that line kept coming into my head. And I did not want to think about that line, but I discovered, kind of by hit or by miss, that if I would think about that line, the Lord is my shepherd, I could think about that line. Well, my mama didn't raise any dummies. I started thinking about that line. Now, I had learned that 23rd Psalm when I was a little bitty kid in Sunday school, and over the years I had been adrift. I had been so adrift. See, I'm ashamed to stand here today and tell you that at that point in my life, it had been years and years and years since I thought of the 23rd Psalm. But that line was there. And I could think about that line. I worked on it for days and days until from someplace in the back of my head, I dredged up the whole 23rd Psalm. I discovered once I had done that, I had control of my mind now. Now, I certainly don't think that was any accident. There was the Lord God Almighty who planted His word in my head so when I would be desperate, it would be there. The point of it is, everything's in your head. You're putting it in all the time. You'd be totally amazed what's up here. And it influences our lives. Scripture tells us to guard our minds. Because it's all going in. It's all getting stored. And somehow it's going to affect our lives. See, what's the problem with watching all these bloody acts of violence on the screen? Over and over and over and over. I'll tell you what the problem is. It's all going in. It's getting stored. What's the problem with pornography? I'll tell you what the problem is. It's all going in. It's getting stored. It's going to influence our lives. There's no way around it. Everything is up there. You'd be totally amazed what you could remember if I took you right out these doors and locked you up in the bathroom for a year. You'd be amazed what's up in your head. Everything's up there. We had a fellow who, when he was a child, his parents used to insist that he had to memorize a poem every year, which he would then have to recite at the annual family Thanksgiving dinner. He hated it, of course. But now, years later, we're sitting around in jail. Norman's able to recall great quantities of poetry. We get a message come tapped to the wall saying, Norman is working on the highway. He's stuck on the line that comes after, plaiting a dark red love knot into her long black hair. Who can help? Well, we'd love to get those messages. We could argue for days. We could discuss for days whether anybody ever heard of the highwayman, read the highwayman, knew anything about the highwayman. Then we just make up lines and send them back to him. He's working hard over there, and we wanted to help. And eventually, through the wall, a line at a time, would come the highwayman. And we'd memorize it as it came. We had huge quantities of material memorized. So, some of the things we memorized for the beauty of the words. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there's been some mistake. The only other sound's the sweep of easy wind from down his way. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I promises to keep. Miles to go before I sleep. Miles to go before I sleep. Some of the things we memorize for the sound of the words. You may talk a tin and beer when you put it safe out. You when set the penny fighter altar shot it. But when it's time for slaughter, you do your work on water and lick the blooming boots of him what's got it. Now in just sunny clime where I used to spend my time in the service of Her Majesty the Queen, of all our black-faced crew, the finest man I knew was the regimental beastie, Dundee. Some of the things we memorize had great significance for us personally. Maybe the way things go some days, they would have significance for you. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve their term long after they're gone, so go on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hang on. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not whined or cried aloud. Under the bludgeoning of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul, leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. I suppose it was natural, since we were so enamored with those kinds of things, that we would try to write some poetry ourselves. I wrote a poem in French. Do any of y'all speak French? Perfect. Je me demande comment dit-on tuer le monde d'abord. Parce que je veux dire ces choses-là à toi, autant que moi. It was perfect. I have a good friend. I remember when he wrote his first poem, it was after the first meal of the day. Jerry took a bite out of Uncle Brady, looked down and started his first poem. It went like this. Little weevil in my bread, I think I just bit off your head. It kind of went downhill from there. How do we do it? We laughed a lot. See, laughter was kind of our coping mechanism. It was the way we dealt with the pressure in our lives. It was the way we tried to keep things in some sort of balance. So I wonder how you do that in your life. I wonder how you keep things in some sort of balance. I wonder how you cope with all the pressure. I wonder how you do. Another thing I learned in prison was I know who's responsible for the coping and balance in your life. You are. And if you don't figure out a way to do that, it's so easy to mess up our lives. It's easy for us to, how easy do you think it'd be? Drink yourself into a bottle. Toke yourself into oblivion. How easy is it supposed to be? How easy is it for us to ruin relationships that are important to us? It's so easy. Somehow we have to cope with this all, keep it in perspective. Our coping mechanism largely was laughter. We had a fellow who went to interrogation. The interrogator wanted to know, in your country, where's your family live? From Kansas. He said, what do your family do? He said, they're farmers. He said, well, what do your family grow? He said, they grow up dog. Later on, the interrogator takes him back to his cell, and he comes over to our cell. And he opens the little split in the spy door, and there stands the elf. We have names for these people. And the elf wants to know, what's up, dog? What's up, dog? He keeps saying it over and over again. What's up, dog? What's up, dog? What's up, dog? We're thinking to ourselves, the elf has blown the fuse. And he wants to know what's up, dog. Then he starts to get excited, and the next thing you know, he's got his head jammed in that little hole. His veins are he's spitting out. See, probably now you could identify with interrogators, bosses, spouses pretty well. It's not good for these people to get excited. He wants to know what's up, dog. Who's it? Good to see you. Good to see you. And he says, up, dog, you don't go to the farm in Kansas. Oh, up, dog. About this high. It's out of everything there is to know about up, dog. So give him the recipe for up, dog bread, whatever he wants to know, we're teaching him. How do we do it? We laugh a lot. Laughter. How do we do it? We did what we had to do. We did our best. We chose to grow through our experience. We kept our sense of humor, and we kept faith. Faith in ourselves, our ability to endure. Got it out. Sun's coming up tomorrow, and I'm going to be there. Faith in ourselves. See, I see that as directly translatable into your lives. Faith in ourselves. Faith in yourself to be able to make whatever decisions you have to make. Faith in yourself to be able to stand on your feet and say, this is right, and this is wrong, and this is for us. Faith in yourself no matter what. We did it through faith in each other. I've lived with men who, if they didn't hold my life in their hands, they held the next best thing to it, and I knew they'd do the best that they could do. And when the situation was reversed, they granted that to me, that I would do the best that I could. It's that kind of faith and confidence in each other allows us to live together, work together, be together effectively. We did it through faith in this country. We live in the greatest nation that has ever existed on the face of the earth. This is a land of freedom. This is a land of achievement. This is a land of opportunity. This is the land they're kicking the doors down trying to get in. This is the land. The problem is, you and I are buried in what's wrong with this country. We are inundated with what's wrong with this country. And it's all out of proportion. It's all out of whack. And nobody's going to do that balancing act for us either. I did it through faith in God. I was never alone over there. I've lived with men who profess to be atheists and agnostic. I think it was more difficult for them. I don't think that was any accident. I think we get so caught up in our lives, we get so self-centered, we get so busy gathering the toys, we get so... The truth of the matter is this: you and I have been blessed. That's it. How do you account for it? Why are you not in Syria in the middle of all that mess? Why are you not in the Sudan starving? How come we are here enjoying so much, having so much? How do you figure? There's no figure. We've just been blessed. And I know as clearly as I'm standing right here, I don't deserve it. And I don't know you, but I have been watching you for a few minutes now. And I have decided you don't deserve it either. How do we do? We did what we had to do. We did our best. We chose to go through that experience. We kept our sense of humor. We kept the faith. What can we learn from my experience? Let me suggest one thing to you. All of my experience teaches me that no matter what happens to us in our lives, no matter what happens to us in our lives, we have been given the ability to choose how we're going to deal with it and how we're going to live our lives. All of my experience teaches me that. Because stuff is going to happen in your life that's going to be out of control. But we always have the opportunity to choose how we're going to live our lives. In the first line of A Tale of Two Cities, Charles Dickens wrote, "It was the best of all times and the worst of all times." He's absolutely right. This is the best of all times. This is the best of all days. This 75th birthday of this base, you being here in Kingsville, Texas, you doing what you're doing, you in the service, you learning to fly, this is the best of all possible times. And oh, by the way, this is the worst of all possible times. To have a birthday for this base, for you to be here, for you to be learning to fly, for you to be doing what you're doing. And which it is up to us. Well, let me be perfectly clear. Which it is entirely up to you. It's entirely up to you. So, as we go on with this party, as we go next door and have a reception, as we go out and cook in the sun for a while, I would always urge you to choose to make it the best of all times. The best of all times. Thank you very much. Happy birthday to you.
As a carrier jet pilot is an inherently dangerous occupation. At this time, I ask you to please stand and join me in a moment of silence for our Kingsville-trained aviators who have fallen in the line of duty and all those who have given their lives for our nation's freedom. Military guests, please cover.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we are grateful for the protection you have given to us, especially for the safety of those who fly. And we are thankful for the contribution that so many have made in so many different ways that have enabled this day to become a reality. We humbly ask you for your continued blessings to be upon us. Give us steadfast hearts that we may serve you, our country, and our community well. Bless us this day as we celebrate, and we ask that you continue to direct NAS Kingsville's mission to train the finest naval aviators. We ask this in your name.
Thank you, Chaplain Sutton. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me in a round of applause for the Veterans Band of the Coastal Bend, who graciously volunteered their time to provide our music today. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank the Air Station Color Guard and Honor Guard. Great job. Lastly, there are so many people to thank for helping make this ceremony a tremendous success. But I want to take this opportunity to thank my public affairs officers, Kevin Clark and Rod Halfmeister, for all their hard work the last 6 months. This concludes our ceremony. We welcome everyone to join us in the no-fly zone next door for a cake cutting and reception. Thank you.